one covering all kinds of products, the eco-design for sustainable products regulation. One of the main goals of both initiatives were identify and regulate the environmental performance of products. In the case of the eco-design for sustainable products regulation, the products under the scope are not defined. As you see, there are other initiatives related to them, such as the batteries or the chemical legislation. And in practice, we are expecting that one of the first products regulated under eco-design are textiles. The case of construction products is slightly different. As you will see later, we have some specificities that require that our implementation is done in parallel to the eco-design for sustainable products regulation. In order to fulfill the EU Green Deal goals and the Circular Economy Action Plan, the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation is expected to be the reference legislation for the assessment and declaration of environmental performance of products in general, and is also one of the key elements that will transform the economy in Europe. At the same time, we want to keep a healthy internal market and provide a level playing field for our industry and also for the industries outside Europe that will market their products in Europe. The framework of the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, as you see, is based on delegated acts. These delegated acts are documents that are adopted by the European Commission, are product-specific and will define the specific obligations of the manufacturers, the labeling, the information to be delivered, and all the details that are required to place a product in the European market. This is an important message that you should take into consideration. This Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation can be implemented to a lot of products, and also some of them may be construction products. The difference between one or the other regulation is not clearly defined in the legal framework because it's expected that both regulations will act as a safety net one of the other. So if the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation identify a shortage in the construction products regulation, it can implement specific measures as regards these construction products. At the same time, if we identify safety issues related to the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, the construction products regulation can act. In practice, what we will try is to cover one product only by one regulation, but this is not always possible. The rule is that the energy-related products will often be covered by the Eco-Design for Sustainable Regulation as a reference, and the traditional construction products such as bricks, structural metallic products, windows will be covered by the Construction Products Regulation. We hope that this system will be reliable enough to ensure that the data and the information delivered to the market is complete and really facilitate the decision making. One of the key elements of the ESPR, the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, is the integration of a regulatory digital product passport. I say regulatory because there are already digital product passports in the market, but in my presentation, I will refer to the specific digital product passport or DPP under the regulation. This digital product passport is one of the key elements because the complexity and the details and the information to be delivered as requested by the regulation may not fit in a usual business-to-consumer communication tool such as a label. For this reason, and also to ensure that the information is maintained during the life cycle of the product, we are developing this digital product passport. The digital product passport will be the key deliverable in the regulation and is expected to be used not only by consumers but also by policymakers and very important by market surveillance authorities who will be able to check the performance of the product in an easy and efficient way. And now I will move to the construction products regulation. As I said, the reasons for the development of the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation are clear. In the case of the CPR, in addition to the environmental sustainability that you have in this slide, together with the efficient use of natural resources and the environmental performance of products, we want to solve some implementation issues we identified in the previous regulation. These are related mainly to the use of standards in the context of this regulation. We continue using standards instead of delegated acts in the CPR proposal. We will see what is the final outcome of the negotiations. And again, one of the key elements of the construction products regulation, in the same way that the ESPR is the digitalization of the construction ecosystem. In this, the adoption of both regulation at the same time forced us to keep kind of open reference to the digital product passport in our proposal. But in the negotiations, we are really moving forward in the same direction that the ESPR, as I will explain a bit later. Why the construction products regulation is an important and I would say quite strong regulatory tool, because it allows manufacturers to deliver the information only once when placing a product in the European market. So instead of having to fulfill the specific requirements of the construction codes of every member state, the manufacturers fulfilling the obligations of the regulation shall be able to place the product in any European market, which means that in practice, the regulators in every member state are also obliged to define what are their needs, and their needs are integrated in the construction products regulation. This complex system has really a high potential. It was already in place in the current construction products regulation and the previous construction products directive. And the new proposal is expected to really enhance and improve this solution and make the harmonized zone really a key deliverable for the European market. In practice, what we want is that the delivery of information is the crucial element when placing products on the market and is enough to satisfy the regulatory needs of any member states. And this point also apply to the digital information. You will easily understand that in the current market, the needs of information are increasing. We have a structural calculation. They were already in place for a long time. We have dangerous substances, which is a crucial topic. We are now improving our methodologies for the assessment of the thermal performance of buildings. Fire performance is also moving in the direction of better design instead of really product performance only. Acoustics is a complex topic which requires a lot of information, and environmental performance has been identified as one of the key deliverables from construction products. But at the same time, the set of data in environmental products declarations is really big and requires the management through software. So in practice, if we want to make the CPR useful from the point of view of regulators, but also from the point of view of the markets, we really need to deliver a solution that allows the use of complex digital formats that will be able to be integrated in the software tools that will apply to the different fields in construction. This picture shows how the system works. The manufacturer manufactures the product. They provide a declaration of performance and conformity and some information that is uploaded in a database or system. In the case of the Ecodesign for Sustainable Products Regulation, this information is uploaded in a server of the manufacturer or subcontracted by the manufacturer. But in the case of the Construction Products Regulation, we are already having a study to define how this system will go. It can be from a centralized database to a distributed database or really a manufacturer obligation to host the data. But in any case, this information will be connected to the product through the digital product passport code. You have the data carrier that will be in the digital product passport registry. In our original proposal, we didn't have a clear picture of how the system were going to work, but in practice, we're now discussing the implementation of the digital product passport registry as part of the construction products regulation. In practice, we will use the same centralized registry that is used for the digital product passport, but instead of using the approach using the eco-design, our documents will be accessible through it, but we will define later how it is done. We can do this because the implementation of the digital product passport, both in the Ecodesign for Sustainable Product Regulations and the Construction Products Regulation, will not be at the entry into force of the regulation or at the date of applicability. It will be a bit later, meaning some years later. And the obligation to provide a digital product passport will be established in a legal document afterwards and will be applicable to any product placed in the EU market. So in practice, it will apply to manufacturers from Europe, but also to importers bringing products to the European market. We hope that the build system that we are going to do together with the eco-design will simplify, of course, the task for manufacturers, and also has the potential to facilitate the situation to manufacturers who sell products in the construction market, but also in other markets. In the same way that other regulations, the implementation of the construction products regulation and its future standards follow a prioritization developed by member states. In the screen, you have the priority of products. We are already working with the first 6 groups of products, but we are expecting that in the coming years, all the products that were already covered by the CE market under the CPR will also benefit from the full CPR system. At a later stage, this will include the digital product passport. In the same way that the Construction Products Regulation, the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation launched a consultation until mid this year to define what are the priority products that they are going to address. So here you have the list that was in the consultation. It is not the final list. The final list will be decided afterwards, depending on the outcome of this consultation. But I want to call your attention to some specific products, such as ceramic products, iron and steel, or aluminium, because these products are also construction products. So in practice, what we need is to establish a clear link and a clear connection and minimize as much as possible the burden of manufacturers falling under both regulations. To conclude my presentation, I want to show you a short diagram on how we are expecting that it will work in practice. So mainly Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation will cover intermediate products like this steel or chemicals, and some final products such as, for example, the boilers. And this information, if it is an intermediate product, will likely to go into the Construction Products Regulation system. And if it is a product that is directly installed in buildings, it will go directly to the building. In any case, through the eco-design or through the Construction Products Regulation, the information will be integrated in the future information needs of the building. And the crucial element is the use of this information. All the policies related to buildings and construction are expected to benefit from this availability of information. Some examples are the digital building logbooks, levels, but we are already discussing also there is a negotiation about the Energy Performance of Building Directive, and it includes the assessment of the whole life carbon of a building. The same applies to the taxonomy regulation. A financial activity is considered sustainable as regards the construction of products only if there is an assessment of the life carbon of the building. And we are also integrating other issues such as circularity issues that will be again in both systems. So in practice, the digital product passport and the digitalization will be the key element to ensure that the future European policy is really delivering and makes sense at the global picture. And we hope really that the support of the European Union to manufacturers to justify their green claims will have a positive benefit, and instead of being considered an additional burden, will, on the contrary, solve all the problems we are having due to the duplication of information that is required by the market. So in summary, I hope that this is a good example of some of the initiatives that we are delivering at the European level, and we really want to promote them, especially with our stakeholders, and we hope that also in the process to develop the necessary tools, in particular the digital tools, your group and your work is one of the key stakeholders and the key groups to be considered, because the maximum we can benefit from the existing experience and tools, the better. We want to make a system that is as much as possible interoperable, useful, and really fit for the purpose that we want. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very successful event.
Great. Thanks very much to Oscar for preparing that. A huge amount of information that really underlines, I suppose, the way that the European Commission is targeting the need to really boost our circularity across the whole of the built environment. So the changes include the eco-design for the sustainable product regulations, but also the changes to the existing construction product regulations. Really, really important stuff as they develop this digital product passport. We're going to hear a little bit more about the discussion about that a bit later on, but first of all, can I introduce our next speaker, Christiane Mann. Christiane, welcome. Christiane is Vice President, Head of Industry Affairs at Siemens Smart Infrastructure, and I believe, Christiane, you're going to talk to us about the Trinity of digital twins. So, Christiane, what's that all about then?
I will try my very best. So thank you everybody for having me here and giving me the time to share some of my thoughts on digital products and infrastructure lifecycle. In our rapidly evolving world, the potential of open BIM for the construction and infrastructure sector cannot be overstated. And to elaborate on this, I would like to first explore some of the current trends and challenges to the infrastructure sector. The first trend, economic challenges in the industry. The construction industry is not known for leading in terms of productivity development. 30% of all projects run over time, 55% of all building maintenance programs are reactive, 37% of all supplies on the construction site get thrown away, 10% of all project costs are due to changes. Since 1995, the construction industry recorded an average annual productivity growth globally of around 1%. During the same time, productivity of the global economy rose by an average of 2.8%, and that of the manufacturing industry grew by 3.6% annually. And I think just these numbers show we have significant room for improvement. Additionally, after years of boom, the construction sector is now starting to feel the impact of price increases, supply chain challenges, labor shortages. Construction indexes globally are weakening. The focus on managing cost and thus increasing the productivity in the construction and infrastructure sector will increase, if you want, even more. The second trend ties very much into what my previous speaker on the screen said, sustainability and life cycle. Construction industry accounts for 30% of the natural resources used, 25% of the solid waste generated. Buildings account for, my number is 38%, this morning it was 39%, regardless, a significant amount of the global CO2 footprint. Carbon emissions for buildings occur not only during construction, but also over the life cycle of a building. Circularity is a topic over the full life cycle of the infrastructure asset. In view of climate change globally, legislators are driving measures to increase the sustainability of construction and the infrastructure sector, especially by reducing carbon emissions. In 2020, the European Union approved the European Green Deal, of what we just saw, parts of it. The European Green Deal is a set of policy initiatives targeted towards achieving climate neutrality in the EU by 2050. Existing laws were reviewed on their climate merits, and new legislation around circular economy, building renovation, biodiversity, farming, and innovation were introduced. You just heard about the ESPR, the CPR. I'll give you some more abbreviations. Because the regulatory environment, including building regulations and codes, reflect a rising number of ESG and sustainability laws and policies. Just to name some of the aspects: reduction of carbon emissions, increase of resource and energy efficiency requirements, and regulatory reporting. Everybody wants information, everybody wants KPIs, all sorts of KPIs. Mandatory ESG disclosure requirements, here are my abbreviations: CSRD, SFDR, TCFD, EU taxonomy, EU climate rule. It's not just in the EU, it's also in the US. The SEC has climate rules. All of these will become increasingly more important to access funding. And I think that's a factor not to be underestimated. All of this lets me come to the third trend: smart infrastructure. Infrastructure is getting smarter and smarter. It is characterized by enhancing the existing or new infrastructure with sensors, wireless technologies, and by overlaying data analytics and management sense-making and decision-making onto the physical infrastructure and connecting all via standardized communication. The ability to intelligently respond to changes in its environment, including changes in user demands and adjacent infrastructure, characterizes smart infrastructure. The result is not only improved performance and higher efficiency, which addresses the economic challenges, but also allows for higher reliability and sustainability. It is not without reason that some people claim smart infrastructure is sustainable infrastructure. So let me come to the topic. Does BIM have to play a role in addressing all these trends? Here's my view. Yes, BIM has the potential to play a significant role. For me, building information modeling is to the infrastructure sector what Industry 4.0 is for manufacturing. The driver for the productivity gains we have seen on the manufacturing side and that are now being expected from the building and construction side. Digitalization is happening. It is an ongoing process. We're witnessing an era where everything is becoming smarter. Even smarter buildings are becoming more common, powered by the Internet of Things and connected devices. With governments and organizations worldwide recognizing the value of sustainable and efficient buildings, the political and regulatory landscape is evolving to encourage and enforce the adoption of digital solutions. Main driver here is the understanding that smart infrastructure is more efficient and more sustainable. To increase the smartness of buildings and direct investment funds to where they are needed, the European Union is developing, for example, a smart readiness indicator. The SRI, as it is abbreviated, measures the building's capacity to accommodate smart ready services. And the expectation is that this will be a key indicator for investors to guide their financing. Similarly, in the USA, where UL is developing SPIRE, a comprehensive smart building assessment and rating program to prioritize and promote smart building performance. BIM thus acts as the lever for the digitalization of the construction and infrastructure sector. It is a work method which is accepted throughout the sector for intelligent networking of tools, processes, and people, and it can do it over the life cycle of an asset. A building life cycle, as you know, has 4 different phases: the design phase, construction build phase, operations maintenance phase, and end-of-life phases. Most of the carbon emissions of buildings are actually not generated within the construction process, but rather during operations and maintenance of the assets. Approximately 85% of total carbon emissions are generated during operations and maintenance, versus, if you want, a meager 12% in the construction phase. So if BIM has a role, how can BIM help? And this is where the Trinity of digital twins helps to explain this. BIM is the working method for network digital planning and construction of buildings. The building is initially created as a virtual model in various levels of detail. This means that the relevant data are always up to date, directly and continuously available to all those involved. The transfer of information within a project is crucial for its success. To this end, DIN ISO 19650 describes in detail information management over the entire life cycle of building in order to establish a common language to make construction more efficient. BIM objects are digital representations of physical products that also contain other important data, such as product information, installation instructions, energy consumption, eco-labels, operating cost, or product lifetime. Merging the virtual model of a building, which is the construction twin, with the BIM objects that provide live sensor data, the product twin, creates the performance twin of your built asset. And the insights gained with a performance twin form the basis for sustainable operations. Buildings have a lifetime of 30 to 50 years in which they generate a huge amount of data. A BIM model and its library delivers about 95% of all information needed by the digital twin. Static data, which are relevant and valuable for the design and the construction phase, reveal their full potential during the operations and maintenance phase of the building when time series translate value data like temperature or humidity into performance data. Early involvement in the design phase of a digital twin is crucial to ensure that functionalities and products are correctly defined and dimensioned to guarantee later efficient and sustainable operation according to the user's requirements. It is only over the full life cycle that data generated via BIM makes a difference in productivity, efficiency, and sustainability of a building. To make data-driven decisions to reduce the carbon footprint of buildings and infrastructure in operation and accelerate decarbonization, an intelligent collaboration of the digital twins is needed. So, the Trinity of digital twins guarantees the availability of data from products, components, and operations for lifecycle assessments and/or structural building measures. Without the Trinity, BIM benefits are limited to the design and construction phase of a building. BIM is the process that creates the common data environment across the building lifecycle. Consequently, the Trinity of digital twins enables efficient planning to eliminate the risks in the construction and operation phase, optimized building performance and maximum operational efficiency, accurate and up-to-date building and asset data, open interoperable systems that enable seamless data exchange, scalable ecosystems to deliver services as low as possible cost. BIM is therefore at the heart of the digital transformation of the construction industry and supports the Trinity of digital twins by acting as a data management ecosystem. Static data from the construction twin combined with the dynamic data from the product twin provide real feedback of the built asset and its performance. Digitalization of the building lifecycle based on BIM data can give rise to new business models and ecosystems. A digital twin, therefore, can play multiple roles across the BIM process and enable user-centric services and software applications that can generate high business value. The application of building information modeling technology opens new opportunities for the development of sustainable buildings, where predicting, managing, monitoring the impact of buildings on the environment through digital technology can improve the entire life cycle from design to demolition, or if you want, from cradle to grave. At the same time, the use of BIM has the potential to improve the energy efficiency of sustainable buildings, reduce carbon emissions, which in turn then leads to providing people with healthy and comfortable living environments. With a Trinity of digital twins, we can handle that every building is unique and that buildings have complex geometries. We can handle the interests of multiple stakeholders and many contributors. Precondition is a common terminology, the semantic, and standards. And this is what makes our work here at buildingSMART International so important. The ability to capture, store, maintain accurate digital representations of building structures brings new life to facilities management. From routine maintenance to emergency response, BIM streamlines operations, allowing for predictive maintenance and more efficient resource allocation. Real-time data from sensor networks integrated with BIM enables facility managers to monitor and optimize building performance and reduce energy consumption, which reduces not only the cost, but also the environmental footprint. So now you will ask yourself, is BIM being used to its full potential? No, it's not. It is frankly not. Hopefully, I can say, unfortunately, it is not yet being used. The design and the construction phase continue to see most BIM applications. We have not yet been able to tap into the full potential and the significant values that lie in the operations phase of BIM-generated data. And why is that the case? Investors only invest in technology that proves its economic benefits to them. Therefore, it is crucial that BIM-supported digitalization creates competitive advantages for investors over the life cycle of a building. This is a job to us. We all need to bring awareness and demand for the benefits of BIM-supported digitalization. As digitalization becomes pervasive, real estate investors, who are the key customers in this context, must be equipped with the right tools to make informed decisions. We must continue to innovate. We must continue to innovate and make BIM more accessible, user-friendly, and adaptable to diverse projects. The focus should be on creating solutions that cater to the specific needs of real estate investors, providing them with comprehensive data and analytics for optimizing asset performance, maximizing returns on investments, and being able to reply to regulatory requirements. No client, regardless from which sector, can afford to ignore the added value that can be exploited through BIM and its digital twin. The European Working Group, EU BIM Task Group, predicts that by 2025, BIM alone can deliver something between 15 and up to 25% savings. So taking cautious assumption on savings of only 10% translates to generating an additional 130 billion euro in savings in the 1.3 trillion euro market. So to summarize, building information modeling is a powerful force transforming the construction and operation of commercial buildings, both existing and new. Digitalization with BIM will enable the infrastructure sector to meet the high demands placed on productivity, enhancement, on-time delivery, and resource conservation. It will also help to reply to all those reporting demands. The value of data generated by BIM is highest over the life cycle and higher in the use phases than in the construction phase alone. BIM is at the heart of the digital transformation of the construction industry and supports the trinity of digital twins by acting as a data management ecosystem. Static data from the construction twin combined with the dynamic data from the product twin provide real feedback of the built asset, its performance, and its economic efficiency and profitability. Building information modeling represents real estate investors with exciting opportunities to streamline their processes, optimize costs, comply with regulatory requirements, and improve decision-making. Embracing digitalization and staying ahead of the emerging technologies will be crucial for long-term success in the dynamic real estate industry. As we embrace the digital age, let us seize this opportunity to revolutionize the way we build and manage our structures, making our cities smarter and more sustainable for generations to come. Together, we can shape the future where buildings are more than just structures. They are living, breathing entities that enrich lives and preserve our planet. BIM or not to BIM will sooner or later become the question to be or not to be for our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. I look forward to the discussion with you. Wish us all a successful and fruitful summit. Let's BIM the life cycle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christiane. Really, really challenging stuff there. I mean, the full potential, as you say, of BIM has not been realized. But when you talk about those numbers of 15 to 25% savings, they're really big numbers. And they really tap into that first issue that you raised there in terms of trends, productivity not being high enough. But of course, it goes beyond that. It needs to also tackle the second and third, which is sustainability, circularity, which is what we heard, of course, from Oscar, but also really embracing this whole new world of smart infrastructure to let us use and get more from our infrastructure. So thanks for setting up the Trinity so clearly there, the use of the existing BIM models and really aligning that with the product twins and then developing these performance twins, which are going to really help us embrace this new smart technology. So thank you very much, Christiane, for sharing that. Next up, we've got Lars Fredenlund, CEO from CoBuilder. And of course, CoBuilder, Lars, you are with us there. I was looking around, you've disappeared on me. Lars, CoBuilder, who is, I suppose, I mean, CoBuilder is at the heart of really trying to, help the industry to, to use its standardized data around the products, etc. And I think you are going to try and respond a little bit to some of the themes that Oscar brought up in that presentation, but take it away in whichever format you choose. So, Lars, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, it's great to be here. I was invited actually to talk here 4 years ago, to the day, I think, Eden said. And since then, a lot of things has happened. 4 years. So the question now is, when we look ahead, and it has been a lot of discussions now. And really what I think is important is to understand what is needed of building smart. a lot of the things that Leon showed on his slide, it's there. But it's to get a common understanding for buildingSMART as in general on what practical steps needs to be taken and who to communicate with. I'm here now, I'm going to narrow down my talk around what Oscar Nieto, the European Commission, is facing, because they're facing, in Europe, they're facing a lot. So there has been a change the last 4 on the energy side. There's been a change on the climate side. And to tackle all these things, you need to look at the regulatory changes and to be practical, to change the regulations from where they are. So towards something where you can change the behavior of the construction and the infrastructure industry. So this is the regulatory changes. And this is just a map. I'm also, Cobbley, we're also a member of Construction Products Europe, which is an association for the manufacturers in Europe. And what I really believe it's important is that the manufacturing companies now, with the theme that I'm going to talk about, is really important, because today, buildingSMART standards and manufacturing standards does not connect. And what Oscar Nieto spoke about is that now they want to connect to BIM, how to do this practically. You saw this slide, and on this slide, on the top right, you have apparel like clothes, and on the top left, you have construction. So there's a eco-design directive that is now being revised, and the eco-design directive is horizontal, so it goes to everything. And what's very important to understand here is that if you want to manufacture or sell any piece of Lego in Europe, anything, a car, clothes, whatever, it needs to be CE marked. And under this CE mark, in each product category area, there are strict rules. So for construction, we've had those rules since the European Union were formed. But this is not understood by the BIM community, how these relations are built. So now what the Commission is doing is actually becoming digital. They want to develop digital frameworks to connect to, one part is BIM. But it is to meet the big challenges that the industry in general have. So what is new? So when you saw the presentation from the Commission, is that there is a new thing, which is a database. And it is the implementation of digital product passports. That's new. So then we need to understand, what does that mean for me? And what does it mean for the community of buildingSMART? And this needs to be understood. That's knowledge. Knowledge is sometimes difficult to grasp. So this is just a sentence. The European Commission is now negotiating with the Parliament. Text is being written, but this is now in writing. So for the first time, if you look at any building in Europe now, there will be a digital product passport for the component in one database. So if you want to do asset operation, you could utilize the digital product passport, because it's going to be mandatory if you want to put your product into the market, get the CE mark, so you can sell your product. So that's something new, something different, which means that where can I get my data? When I search on Amazon, all these things is going to be connected. It's going to go step by step, but this is the new implementation of digital product passport to meet all the challenges on transportation, on building, on operations, and all these other topics. And now, I think it was in China where buildingSMART and GS1 shook hands. I'm going to just say that that connection is very important. Those two organizations is very important. So I'm going to the buildingSMART summits, been doing that for many, many years, but I'm also joining the GS1 summits. And I see that there's an enormously important link to this identification stuff. So to identify a building, to identify a space, to identify a system, to identify a product. And again, going back to the Commission, they are going to mandate the usage of those data carriers. It's going to be a mandatory thing. When you put the product on the market, you have to have a data carrier that has to be registered in something called a DPP registry. And then the data on the product side will be stored in a database. And those data sets, those object definitions are defined by the Commission, not by buildingSMART. So that's where the interconnected dictionaries is important to understand. Why do we need different dictionaries in China and Europe? Because we have different regulations, different standards, and buildingSMART has something called a dictionary. So it's not a problem. But it's just to understand that there are different national requirements needed. And in Europe, we have one common language, which is called the Harmonized Standards, which it's mandatory. It's DIN standards, it's Norwegian standards, it's French standards, every country have to implement those standards. And what's new also is that for each product that are put on the market, the carbon footprint of the product, of the transportation of the product, will matter. Meaning, where is it manufactured? Where is it installed? These things will be driven via the digital product passport. Because the identifiers will say, this is manufactured here, and I'm using it here. And also, from the product, when you get the product into the construction site, you can scan the product. Or if you have it in a building, in a database, you have it in a database. But what's important to understand that there is a direct link. It's not via the manufacturer's website to try to find it. It's a direct link to the product, to the DPP. And this link is very important. And that's where GS1 comes into play, where GS1 is important. And I'll come back to the IFC, future IFC 5, where these things really connect. So for the first time, I've seen in European law written, there has to be a data dictionary. We need to have a common language. It should be machine readable. It should be machine interpretable. And again, what the Commission wants to do here is to define product categories in the BIM world. This is called construction objects, BIM libraries. There's many words. Upon that, you can make the ISO 19650 information requirements, asset information requirements, all these things. But it's the Commission which is publishing a dictionary. And what is important to say here is that we're not talking about dictionary, but dictionaries. There's a standard called ISO 23386 talking about how to develop properties using interconnected dictionaries. So this is a really important one, that there is not one, there are several, but there should be interconnected. And there's a standard developed for that. So we have applied CoBuilder and Technalia and UNE. UNE is a standardization body in Spain, together with a lot of partners. We have applied for a bid where the Commission wants to look at how to set up this database. How should it be set up? Should it be one centralized database? Should it be distributed where you can go to, let's say, 5 to 6 to 7 different actors that can help you to hold digital product passport, develop digital product passport, and register digital product passport into a CPR database? Or should it be with each and every manufacturer? So this study what the Commission is now publishing very soon is the winner. And we hope to be the winner of this. And we hope to announce that buildingSMART and GS1 and these partners will work together on how to solve this topic of creating a digital product passport schema connected to a database. And specifically here, what I would like to say is that FIEC is the contractors in Europe on the left-hand side. And then you have Construction Products Europe, which is the association for the manufacturing companies. And of course, you have buildingSMART and GS1 here, which is very important. So this work will start in October. And in 6 months, and here's the timeline, in 6 months, there's the first report. Because what's going on now is that we have something called Fit for 55, which means that within 2030, the Commission wants to reduce the carbon footprint by 55%. So time here. So this is the push, big push for the Commission is that, do we have time? No. Do we have to push? Yes. And that's a huge change that this is happening so fast. I thought that it was digital that is going to make it, but it's actually the first slide I showed. Green Deal is the driver. So IFC 5. We could talk about IFC 4.0, 2.3. We could talk about IFC 4.x. But I would just like to say that I was in Paris and I discussed with Greg that is working on the future IFC standard. And I truly believe that this is an enormous potential for buildingSMART. Because to put it in plain language, what the Commission will to their level, they will develop a dictionary. That's where they will hold the characteristics of each product. It's in a dictionary. Can buildingSMART connect to a dictionary? Yes, we have one. It's called BSDD. So there is a direct link here between the regulation and actually how we define the information. Today, we do it very often in IFC, where we define property sets and properties. But now the Commission wants to develop a dictionary. So then this disconnected thing, which for IFC 5, what is it supposed to solve? And what is the dictionary part supposed to solve? And this is very important to understand that this disconnectivity is what I've seen in the oil industry, in the car industry, and I think also that this is important to understand for buildingSMART International. So the key takeouts here is that the Commission wants to set up a study for the implementation of a European database for construction products. So if you're a manufacturer manufacturing outside of Europe, you have to be in the database. If you're a manufacturer inside Europe, you have to be in the database. The key thing here to differentiate between is a DPP register, which is registering the information on the QR codes on the data carrier, which is one system, and the database is the other system. And for each and every one operating in Europe, you can connect. And I believe that how we're going to connect here is talking about APIs. How can I utilize APIs to connect, to develop software around or use this as a resource in my development? So I think understanding all these topics is important for the buildingSMART community. And later today now, we will hear from GS1 more around, GS1 and buildingSMART on the work that we are doing now around the area of products. So that's it from me. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Lars. It is a fiercely complex area, but incredibly important. And I suppose you're at the cutting edge of what's going to happen next. When do we know whether or not you actually win that?
We hope to know within a couple of weeks.
Okay.
At the latest.
And then the work starts then.
Yeah.
Good. Lars, thank you very much indeed. Right. Yeah, so keep your eye on what's happening there, because there's an awful lot of work going to come out of that if that goes the way Lars intends. Right, we're going to hear next from Anna Merkler. Anna has come to join us from Switzerland and is from a technical engineer from Schindler, and he's going to talk to us about the role that, well, the way that lifts, or if you like to call them elevators, you can do that as well. Lifts and elevators, the role they play in really trying to accelerate access for all, but also to come up with new sustainable solutions. So Anna, over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to show this digital product, the digital elevators we offer already. I want to start with a short analog survey. So who has taken the elevator to get to the breakfast? So who has taken the stairs? Oh, also several. But you remember this morning when we asked what's needed, we talked about stairs, not about elevators. And here to my person, as introduced, I'm coming from the technical engineering. I'm a mechanical engineer, and now I'm working as a business process manager in Schindler Management. So since nearly 1 month now, so it's a really fresh role for me. And in my spare time, I'm more on the analog side, so as compensation of all the digital stuff. To Schindler and to the topic of elevators and how we are contributing in this digitalization. So cities keep growing, and of course elevators are a really important part. Also, when we talk about sustainability, it's not just about carbon footprint, it's also about equality, or it's also about accessibility. So I think elevators take a big role inside this. And of course we have not just elevators, we have also escalators and movie box, and we have this product in a lot of different phases inside the building life cycles. So of course we are also not just in buildings, we have elevators in ships, we have elevators in hospitals, so it's a really wide range. And when we talk about our products, or it's also digital services, we talk about a digital twin already in the design phase. We talk about BIM, using this data then also for the installation process. We talk about operation and maintaining. And of course, also modernization plays a big role inside the life cycle of a building, but also of an elevator. As for example, the MetaCore service shows. And there we have also a quite interesting pilot project in Sydney, the Quarter Tower, where the existing shaft or core which was rebuilt and reused in a kind of new building. And we heard a lot about how which data is needed and how we transfer. And from the manufacturer perspective, I think we have already a lot of data in place, and it's more the question how we can provide them to you in the different phases of the life cycle, and which data do you need. And when we map the life cycle of an elevator through a building, we see that we also have not just one elevator inside a building, we have several elevators during the life cycle of a building, because our life cycle is a little bit shorter. So that brings me to the conclusion, or that we have a lot of interfaces and different phases of the building. And what we have done, we have started small with the topic of planning. And we came, of course, also from the 2D drawings. And I think I've also worked with some colleagues who started their apprenticeship on a 2D drawing board. And now, we are going more and more in the direction of 3D modeling, automated processes. And we already use also this data, for example, for traffic summarizers. And we had there, for example, also a project in place where we checked a building about 100 years, how the different usages during this time period, which will, or how we can provide there the best elevator solution or vertical transport solution inside this whole life cycle with different scenarios. And we have, of course, also planning tools where you can insert some input data and get without any manual input. You get directly from our configurator or a solution to your project-specific request. So, and we had a project in Germany in the VDI where we started, I think, 2017 around to specify which data is needed, for example, in the planning phase from different stakeholders that we can then deliver based on these requirements an elevator, a project-specific elevator model. And you see it's all based, of course, of IFC. We have the different classifications, and there are all the required inputs which we need then from elevator perspective to configure a project-specific elevator. And that's so the questions, or who is delivering what, how, when, and why, we defined here for the planning process. For building model creation, so what are the requirements, and then what are our answers as manufacturer. And of course, we are not just delivering then a model or a drawing. I think currently it's both as needed. And in our tool, we use currently all this both is linked, and it's, of course, it's here for demonstrated practice. Normally it's filled out then automatically, but here you can see then how a model is generated or opened, and also according to the IFC standard delivered to customer sites. And of course, we have also used here, for example, the IFC door entity, not just the elevator, depending on the model requirements. And for different phases, I think we have different information needs, and so we have also defined different LODs. And we use, for example, internally the data also then for the installation robot and high-rise building to drill the holes for the car railing. And so that's, let's say, start small, or we start with the planning phase, and now we see that this requirements also according sustainability increase, and that we have a lot of data in place. So in my point of view, it would be quite important as a next step to talk about the different phases of an elevator inside the building life cycle and develop the steps or these requirements information need then together, so that we have it, of course, with the new elevator, but also with the service, or if you talk about modernization. That at the end, or we have really one single source of truth, which can then also be linked, or for example, for GS1 data or sustainability information. And for us, or start small, we have this project-specific data exchange, but of course, we also want to go in the direction of automation and efficiency. And in my point of view, we can just be efficient if we start living this process also in the operative way and not just talking about it, so not doing it really in the action, what we see this morning. And for us, we want to go this path together with you or with the buildingSMART community and define the data which is needed, but from all stakeholders. And for us, it's important that we have global standards. Of course, we are a global acting company. So I think it's really important for us to have this global standard. We also talk about APIs, IFC JSON with real-time linked data, but we also need the process definition over the life cycle, or who is doing what, why, when, how. And yeah, we need to focus on the global standardized solutions. And who is following the elevator topics in buildingSMART sometime? I think I showed this in Rome also. But what happened in the meantime? Yeah, I'm not the first one, but we are becoming a buildingSMART international member now. And so, and for us, it's really important that we strive to standardization. And it was said before, or it's not just on the construction side or in software side, it's also that we need to connect with the manufacturer standardization bodies. So on the ISO level, for example, in the elevator industry, we have there also a chapter, new technologies, with the working group BIM. And I think there it's also quite important to bring not just the manufacturer perspective, but also from the building sector, from from the government and so on, more the view. And yeah, we believe also in collaboration and interoperability, or also to achieve this efficiency growth. And why are we doing it? Or it's not just native data, it's, I think, open data has shown also with here Apple and Android as an example that open data is really common in our current society. And so what are the next steps for us? Of course, we want to develop these guidelines together with you. We want to define this and exchange information during the whole life cycle of elevators and escalators. And of course, if we have projects where we can really do hands-on and check if what's defined is also really helping in the operative process, and then I think that's really a important part. So if you're interested more with elevators and escalators and to define, you're welcome to contact us. And so that no digital shaft in the future is empty. And if you want to download your project-specific elevator file, you can directly go to our planning tool. And thank you for your attention.
Anna. Thanks, Anna. Phenomenally complicated pieces of equipment are elevators or lifts or travelators or escalators. Anyone who's been waiting for one that doesn't work. But I suppose what you're trying to do is make sure that they are all standardized and that they are actually able to be standardized products so that they're not down, they're not out of operation, and they are continually being used.
Yeah, and that I think that it's really collaborating, or in that we bring this growth together and take these actions for sustainability. And for example, I think currently I have more questions than answers, but I don't know where from the European Union where the elevator is placed as a product, or in which data I have to deliver. I think that's the points where we have to connect and to clarify these topics.
Well, I think certainly elevators, they go beyond being a product. They're a system. They're living and breathing machines. Anyone that's ever peered beneath what's going on in the underground in London, definitely there's more than a load of products going on there. They're machines living. Anna, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Anna. Right. So to round us off and take us into lunch, let's round us off and invite Enzo Blonk, founder of Consenso, and Geir Paulsen, managing director of GS1. You heard a bit about GS1 in Lars's presentation, so just fill in the gaps and tell us where we're going with this whole new world of digital products. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We are aware that we stand between you and lunch, but bear with us a bit of time. Where did this whole story begin? I think on a personal note, I think if this summit would need to get was a film and would need to get a title, I think it would be Lillestrøm 2.0, how the construction industry stroked back against the global pandemic. Because again, 3 years ago, I remember we planned this to be here. So it's quite interesting to be here. Thanks for that. So the story between GS1 and buildingSMART. Let's go back to 2016. Everything started between GS1 Norway and buildingSMART Norway. They got their heads together, were very already straightforward and very practical in their approach. And what they done is they agreed, came together, and started to work on the OpenBIM link to the GS1 standards. And they created a nice video that probably most of you have seen here. It's called What OpenBIM Does For You. buildingSMART in 4 minutes. Not bad. We're having a full summit here talking about buildingSMART, and they can do it in 4 minutes. Incredible, isn't it? But in that, you see something, you see a few acronyms. So we are two organizations that came together, sort of married, and we brought both from our side some children into this, and those are the acronyms. We love acronyms. Yeah, so this is one of the acronyms. It's the serialized global trade item number, very important if you want to identify products, but we'll come to that a bit later. So when two organizations come together and they come from completely different backgrounds, it's very difficult to explain to the community, the respective communities, what each one is doing. So the best way we had to explain what GS1 was doing was to talk about the barcode. Yeah. By the way, this is a barcode. It's 50 years old. It will be soon replaced by something more modern, a QR code, but Geir will talk about that a bit later on. So what we try to do is just keep things simple, not make it overcomplicated, so that both communities could understand what we were talking about. What we had in common was open standards. So when we saw this, when we looked at the vision and the mission statement of both the organizations, it's almost interchangeable. Yeah, so they were talking about focus on the development, maintenance, adoption, and the use of open standards in the area of construction for buildingSMART, of course, in the area of healthcare, retail for GS1, and all of that for the benefit of creating some interoperability. Interoperability is very important. We've heard it a few times today. And you will hear it a few more times in the next few days. So to explain things in an easy way, we started with research, and we invited the communities, the construction community, to reflect and to discuss and to engage in digitization. Digitization, everybody knows, I think the gap is quite big across the board. Of course, there are some actors that really embrace the digitization, but across the board, digitization is very far. The industry works with papers, at best PDF documents, but it needs to be more than that. So what we did as well, and this is a slide from from the summit in Beijing. Basically, what you could say is that the Z-axis, which is the scope, is basically what the construction industry is doing. The supply chain is something that GS1 has been traditionally very strong in. Where those two join together is the asset lifecycle. So the asset lifecycle is basically making sure that you have continuity of identification and that you can exchange the information with all the stakeholders across the sector. So the asset lifecycle basically will also be focal in a workshop that will be held tomorrow called Fit for 55. Are you fit for 55? But a bit more on that later on. We indeed, back in the time, had a MOU, and the MOU focused on a few things. So they focused on enabling the construction industry to benefit from the combined expertise of both organizations, to make use of the standards and services that they both deliver from each side. The use of those global standards is critical in addressing today's challenges and in the digitization of the sector, and to strengthen the benefits of those open standard-based interoperability. Again, all of those elements have been discussed today, and we had already quite, I wouldn't say a vision, but at least we had a view of how things could move on later on. And so what we have today, you've seen this, I think, twice before that. So the implications of the EU Green Deal for the construction industry. And last week, or a few weeks ago, I think the UN Environment Programme also had issued a report on building materials and the climate constructing a new future. If you look at the different activities, so who does what to decarbonize material? If you look at all the different activities that are mentioned here, this is something to be done by the whole community. There's not one actor that does it all. it is really a collaboration, and this is what is necessary over the few next years, because we're almost there. Now I hand over to Geir.
Thank you.
Talking a bit more on GS1.
I will, thank you. And thank you for having this opportunity to tell a little bit about GS1 and also why we have this footprint within the construction industry. But I will start having this, when I have this opportunity, because I think I'm going to have a pleasant surprise. How many in this room, please raise your hand, has heard about GS1? Good, that's not a typical situation when I ask that question.
We did a good
job.
That
was good. Unique identification. That is a prerequisite for the digitization of the construction industry. And that is one thing GS1 is recognized for, unique identifiers. So I will just give you a glance of GS1. We are a global organization, and as you can see, we are physically located in 116 countries around the globe. What I will emphasize is the neutrality and the not-for-profit concept we are driven by, and we are also driven by our users. So we are a member organization. And based on the strategy and the global footprint we have, GS1 established a concept 3-4 years back in time called the Center of Excellence for the Construction Industry. And I will tell a little bit more about that later. But we know to achieve what we are trying to achieve is not possible to do alone. And what Enzo told about, the collaboration we have, the MOU we have, this is the kind of events, and buildingSMART is a kind of organizations we would like to work together with to achieve bigger goals. So, 50 years of continuous standards development. As Enzo said, we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the barcode this year. And over these 50 years, we have been evolving and going from focusing on increasing the efficiency to now also focusing on social responsibility. GS1 started back in 1974 when a Wrigley juice fruit package was scanned in a US supermarket, mainly to reduce the queue in the cash register at the checkout. Today, GS1 is a significant contributor to increase the patient safety within the healthcare sector, to provide full transparency and traceability within the value throughout the value chain, and also through GS1 standards, we ensure the circularity within different industries and branches. But we know, as you know, that digital transformation is about change, and change is equal to resistance. And I think this edition of the satire magazine Mad from 1978 says it all. They were forced to have this barcode down on the left corner, and they were not happy about that. That was a change they were not happy about. And we know that this is the challenge we meet today, to come through this digital transformation. So what we need is, of course, the leadership. We need a commitment. I think we in this room are committed about this, but we also need a common target. And it's, I think, very important to bring the right people together to work towards that target. And I think this room of people is the right people to make that happen. So, digital product passport, why is that important for GS1 to be involved in? Well, from a strategical point of view, this is important for us, because this is a mission possible for DS1 to complete. So we are involved in different initiatives like the Surpass Consortium, who actually are developing a roadmap for DPP piloting. And as I said, our Center of Excellence team are working every day to make sure that DS1 are able to deliver according to the industry needs. So finally, let me show you this bouquet of the Center of Excellence team. These are the people who have global responsibility in DS1 to help this industry to digitize. These people represent today 11 different countries in Europe, and we are growing, and we will also grow outside of Europe. But these are the people who have the responsibility within DS1 to help the industry to become more digitized and actually go through the digital transformation. So make sure you meet these people. Here you can see who they are and what country they represent. Make sure you meet them and say hello to them and connect with these people. Together we will make things happen. Okay, Enzo.
Okay, thank you. Which leads us to the last part. So almost finished. Lunch is, I think, ready. Don't worry. At the last summit in Rome, a few people had a sort of a private little roundtable discussion, and we discussed on if we wanted to talk about products, what is missing, what elements are missing, what questions are being asked. So we had a 1-hour discussion with a few people. I think we were 15 to 20, all people that regularly join the buildingSMART summits. And what came out of this was basically that the conclusion was that we miss some stakeholders. We miss stakeholders, a variety of stakeholders that need to participate here, to be here, to be represented. We're talking about construction companies, we're talking about manufacturers, we're talking about a few other people. And we said, well, we need maybe to have a look at that. And also we need to come up with some clear business value and some use cases on what the value is to invest in digital data. Because everybody had digital data, but is it interoperable? Is it based on open standards? We don't know. So it was something to be investigated. So we came up with the idea to, at the next summit, so we're here, to have a full-day workshop on this topic, really focusing on a few elements such as the products themselves, including data templates, data dictionaries, open BIM passports, the transparency discussion. Climate change, we've heard it a lot of times today, starting with Oscar Nieto just before. And then the data flows, how all of this data flows within the different processes, sometimes parallel process that we have. How does that flow into the whole thing? And we need to gather around this and discuss, learn, discuss, exchange, share best practices. So tomorrow we will have a full-day workshop, as I mentioned. I'll get to the agenda in a few moments. This is so if you want to have more information, scan the QR code. I guess you've already done it by now. And this is where it is happening. It is happening in this side of the auditorium. The other side will be for the digital twin. This side, the South Norway, I think it is called, this part of the auditorium. And what will we discuss? Well, quite a lot of things will be discussed. We have, I think, I calculated 20 speakers from 17 different countries, companies, organizations, discussing all of this. So we will talk about the basics, because we will have new participants tomorrow joining who do not know either what GS1 is or what buildingSMART is doing, or what data templates or data dictionaries is. So we have to sometimes to just put the basis out there, short. Then we will have some real use cases. So we talked a lot about regulation this morning, but why wait for the regulation? We want to show here that it's not only the stick that has the whole construction industry move forward, but we have some carrots as well. And those carrots are benefits that people have seen by using open standards. And this is something that will be presented just before and after lunch. We will have a small panel discussion, and then we will really get into interactivity, exchange information, discussion in the breakout rooms. So a full day. Please ask me if you have some doubts, some questions. I hope that you will join us tomorrow morning. I know there's quite a lot of parallel sessions happening. This is why I put the agenda here. So if there's one element more interesting for you than the other, make sure to be here. And let's hope we all learn something from that and can move forward and collaborate more intensively as GS1, as buildingSMART International, but also the full community, stretching over the full value chain and asset lifecycle. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Enzo. Thanks, Enzo. Thanks, Geir. 50 years since the barcode was invented. Who knew that? There you go. And how it has changed everyone's lives. A fascinating romp through the challenges of really embracing digital products. I hope you found that useful. Certainly the scene was set very well by Oscar, who reminded us of this new eco-design for sustainable product regulation, and of course the changes required to the construction product regulations and the coming digital product passports, which these guys are all going to be driving forward. So take on board that. Do have a good chat with the speakers over lunch, and work out how you can really get your heads around what's needed to be done to embrace this new world of digital products. But right now, go off and have yourself a nice bit of lunch, nice bit of chat, and we'll see you back here in about an hour's time. Thank you very much.